This next panelist is my guy. If you guys listen to Meek, you might have heard him being shouted out, you know, turn me up, Cruz. But he's more than just an engineer. You know, he's also an executive in the game. He manages some producers and have some publishing deals and some other placements. So I want to talk to him about not only the mixing side of it, but also being an executive as well. So without further ado, Duke, give it up for my man Cruz one time.
Hey, brother.
Sir, we on the red couch with it, man.
Let's go.
Gotta make sure we know what my man's worked on as a mix engineer. So I got a little playlist situated real quick for him. So play a couple joints, let you know what he's mixed.
The spot's so dope, bro. Yeah, it's really good.
Color fire.
Yeah.
Crazy. Word up. Might have heard this record too. So this is my man's final product right here. It's what he does.
I got a little bitch from the hood, I call her gang, she don't play with that bass shit. I be fucking this NBA nigga bitches, you know I ain't never gonna say shit. New contract being like I play ball, boy, ain't nothing to play with. I told her pull up, she told me she can't, her nigga be sharing location. I was riding in the ghost of the ghost gun, seeing right with your kids, so you don't run. And my man in the camera, he taking up the sand, she gon' pop with the mat like don't run. They go up here, they all get how you ever had a frozen. It's too much cash for me to hide, I had to get a little bro some. I fuck around from time to time, I don't show no emotion. But when he died, he had the racks, he had to make a go for him. I hang with the hills who train the killers, who send all the niggas on slow run. I got me a check and I brought me a cat and I went on the block and they know none. So I hang with all the murderers, I'm paying all the lawyers for the murderers. I'm putting on my dust on the murderers. You don't wanna see me with the murderers. Yeah.
Yes, sir. One more for good luck.
It's that Philly Bopper shit. Yeah. I'm on the east side rolling with my west side niggas. West side. We just trying to do it better than the best guy nigga. Best guy. And the fans looking better, they don't catch my nigga. Might pull up on the corner like catch my nigga. And Bunny's been down like catch my nigga. I'm a nigga with the 40 pounds up. All I am, I got 40 rounds up. Cash out, key the nigga with the pounds up. He count on me even when the move slow. Come through, copy with all my niggas. Come through, pop with all my niggas.
Who produced this record?
Seen how we look last winter. You should have seen when we ate last dinner.
What's his name?
I don't fuck with them Hollywood
He's local
niggas.
too. He's from here.
I don't fuck with them Hollywood niggas.
Forget his name.
The clever, I mean, the way he chopped it up was
Yeah,
clever.
he did a great job. He got the record through, you know, like Slow Bucks and them.
Yeah.
Like he runs with them.
Okay.
You know, they knew him, so they put
Fire.
him. Yeah.
Happy hands for Cruz, man.
Yeah, appreciate it.
So a couple of months ago, I think it was the end of last year, top of this year, we went to that party that we.
Oh, the quad.
Was it end of last year, right?
Yeah, it was something like that, or it might have been early in this year.
Yeah, it's hard to tell these days. Memory's going, but we had an opportunity. We went to this party for it was like a 50th anniversary for hip hop, but it was also for the Asperger speakers. You know that are was all in the big studios and had this whole new launch of things they're doing. So I was there. Cruz was gonna play some music. I guess they asked him to play some music, but they weren't really clear about what they really wanted to do. So I saw him come in, so I texted him. I didn't know where he went. I said, "Where you at?" He's like, "Oh, I'm come see me." Okay, cool. So we're sitting there, and then you know, Jesse comes in and runs his penthouse, and he's like, "So Meek, Cruz, what are you gonna play?" And you're like, "Oh, what do you do?" So I was like, "You know, why don't I just interview him? You know what I'm saying? I threw myself in the mix, as I always do. You know me, like to talk. And I was like, why don't we just do a quick little interview, impromptu, and we'll just kind of go through some history about what he's done. So we kind of already had a conversation like this, but I want to make it a little more well-rounded, and not just be so much about being a mix engineer, but also talking about the transitions to being more an executive. Also just like your current thoughts on like what's going on in the state of, music, sonically, et cetera. So let's just take a quick dive back to the beginning. Like, how did Cruz get involved in music in general?
Music in general, I have to credit. I mean, I've always, from a kid, been in love with music. But when my stepfather came around is when I really like started really falling in love, like in a different way. Like, you know what I mean? Like he put me on to jazz, hip hop, alternative pop, old pop records, 80s music and stuff like that. So music was like a big part of the household. You know what I mean? Like, you clean up on the weekends and blast music and open the windows, catch a vibe. So that kind of is where the love for music started. But what intrigued me about music was like, there was always this question I would have of how did they get records to sound radio ready, right? Because as I started dabbling and was trying to do production and things like that, there was always kind of this, because back in the day, there wasn't access to so much quality, like samples and sounds and things like that. So it was always trying to find a way to like, how do I sound like my records are ready for radio? And so that's what kind of triggered the trek into, finding out about engineers, the guys behind the scenes that have put the records together, all your, my favorite producers, executives, things like that, and having like a real appreciation for more behind the scenes than the people, that were like in front of the camera and things like that.
When you first got started, was there any other mix engineers or anybody that you kind of like studied or looked up to or had aspirations to be better than?
Yeah, definitely. Guru is my top guy. He's my brother to this day, which is a crazy full circle of events. But definitely Guru. Duro was one of those two, another good friend. Jimmy Douglas, Bruce Sudine, Jimmy Iovine is like definitely like, as far as just how you do this shit, like like transition from what we're talking about of like being an engineer into how to go exec. That's the blueprint if there ever is one, so.
Did you have any schooling in regards to becoming an engineer?
Yeah, actually, I was at Georgia State and, I was kind of, how you kind of do things to satisfy like what your parents or your family would find like appropriate for you, you know what I mean? Like, so Georgia State was the initial route and it was so confusing because I was like, all right, I'm gonna major in business. I'm sure that'll be impressive, like major in business. And then I switched my major to English, which made it a little more open for me to just do different classes like film history. I did some like music theory classes and just, I was just trying to have fun and get something out of it. But I was still kind of like, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with any of this. Fast forward, graduated Georgia State. I'm on the corporate hustle. I'm going from working at Coca-Cola to selling cell phones at Verizon. And I'm just like, I just had this moment driving back from a trip one day and I'm like, what do I really want to do in life? And what is it going to take for me to get there? And an ad popped up for Full Cell. I was like searching, reading blogs and all that type of stuff. And a Full Cell ad popped up in the corner and I started doing some research. I'm like, man, there's, programs for people to, learn
people
how to
like
get
me.
business. And like people that love music. So I just dropped everything, man. I quit my job, broke a lease that I had at my apartment, took all the money I had out of my savings and went to Florida and did this 1 year at Full Cell. And I just told myself, like, I'm just never turning back. I'm going to figure this shit out. And that's what I did. I went to Full Cell for a year. And after Full Cell, moved up top. I was commuting from Connecticut to New York, just finding ways to get into studios. working 2-3 jobs, just grinding, bro, until I, finally landed my first opportunity.
Which was?
I ended up at Roc the Mic, which, rest in peace to Roc the Mic, but it was a legendary spot. That was kind of the redheaded stepchild to Baseline. And it's where, Hov did like Blueprint 3, American Gangster. I did a lot of work with Stargate, who had the B-roll.
Jeez.
So as you can imagine, I came up under some incredible legend. I saw a lot of hits. I mean, these guys, like, my clients in the B room controlled the top 10 of Billboard for years, like had it in the chokehold. And so, my first session when I accepted the internship was Neo and Mary J. Blige. Just being around, that level of clientele, I knew I was in the right place. I was with, a solid network. And what I learned over the years of my time there, even to this day, is like what it really takes to build a successful movement in this music business, like, and do it with your family, do it with your same team. I don't know. There's definitely a lot of examples, but like I was blessed to come up under the Roc, and seeing how they've, kind of just like developed out over the years.
Yeah.
And
Scaled up.
like just becoming this monster. But I went from that to like, just to like have extra money. They reopened 4040 and allowed me to be the AV tech there. So, I was running back and forth between 4040 and Roc the Mic. We were like 2 blocks away from each spot. So I was running back and forth, hustling sessions, then also going and working the club till 4 a.m. And, I would be packing bags, just literally sleeping in the studio days at a time, just from like the workload, just grinding, hustling, you know what I mean?
So everybody knows about the artist grind. The producer grind is not always told, but the engineer grind is also another conversation that needs to be added to the mix, because running a studio, I know, the effort that these guys got to put in to stay consistent in what they do, get their money, get their credits and whatnot. So it's amazing to understand that as part of your journey. So obviously you got introduced to Meek at some point. Talk about how you guys connected and why it worked out so well for both of you at first.
Leading up to the Meek sessions, I had gotten, I was mostly working with the Roc Nation roster. So anybody that would come through there, I assisted for J. Cole when he was working on his first album, Ryan Leslie, Bridget Kelly, the whole Roc roster. Wale would be in and out of there, and Santiago, and there was opportunities that had happened. I'm getting to a point, but there was like opportunities within this where I could have made moves and had long-term relationships with some of these clients, and for whatever reason, it just never felt like the move to make. And I was like, let me just hold tight, and then hopefully when they come to town, they'll call me, and we could keep building that way. But nothing that I was like eager to jump out and hit the road about. And so the 10-year anniversary of 4040, we're at this party. There's all these like big celebrities in there, so we all had to be like suited up or whatever. And we get a call over the radio, and it was Dez looking for me, like, yo, Cruz, I need you at the studio. Meek's there, he doesn't have an engineer, I need you to record him, like drop whatever you're doing, like go to Roc the Mic. So I get there, it's a room full of Meek, and at the time he was rolling with like 20, 30 homies, you know what I mean? So it was like, I walk in, I got the suit on from the party, I look like a square.
Like, who's this guy?
Yeah, so and like, it was interesting because it was almost like an interview. He's like, do you know how to engineer good? Like, yeah. He's like, who have you engineered? I had to explain kind of the roster I worked with, how long I've been working. He explained like his workflow, if I understood how to work with people's templates and things like that, because he over time had a template built out by various engineers, and they had been editing it or whatever, and so he was going over the settings and things like that. So, and fast forward a couple weeks, we were just working. Like, he was working on DC3 at the time, and we were like, you know, just going in, you know, and like really just kind of catching like a synergy, you know what I'm saying? Like where there were things where it was like unspoken, where I just started really understanding his workflow, where he can just come in and know like things are set up the right way.
Yeah.
Files are being organized. Like he started trusting me more with his hard drive. Because before, when we first started working, he would have one of the homies go grab the hard drive out of the machine with me and just put it in their bag. And, you know, and it got to a point where he's like, yo, just hold on to it, work on some of the records, you know, put some ideas, whatever. And that's when I knew it kind of was like getting to that point. But I mean, I just respected him as an artist, as a lyricist. And I was like, man, this, you know, we started having the conversation of like, yo, when you're done with this, I would like to continue and like hit the road with you and whatnot. And he was like, yeah, I'm down. Like, I need somebody to be in the studio with me, because he had these complaints. And you can find interviews of him talking about this record of like going to different studios, dealing with different engineers. Your sound is different wherever you go, all the frustration of working on the album on the road. So having a steady engineer, you know, would only help and value. So, you know, I remember that conversation. Like I was like a little nervous to tell Dez and the Roc team, like, yo, I'm about to hit the road. And it was the easiest conversation I ever had in my life. I went to her office. I was like, yo, Meek's really, you know, rocking with me, and he wants me to hit the road. So I'm gonna have to, you know, I want to take advantage. She's like, bye. Like, see you. So, man, 10 years later, you know what I mean? Like we had a hell of a run.
Yeah.
You know.
Give it up for that.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's important to understand that, you know, an artist like Meek, you know, who's made so much impact in that 10 years, you know, having a sonic identity, like the way his vocals should be, you know, how they should sit on the record. You guys have that communication. I don't know if that's really something that happens all the time between artists and producers. I think sometimes it's like, how much you charge? $100 to maybe do a mix? Okay, cool. Like when you guys started to work, what do you think, what did you bring to the table that maybe Meek wasn't thinking about? Or what did you do maybe differently that helped really kind of catapult his sonic identity? So people knew when they heard his shit, they were like, okay, this is it.
One of the things I prided myself on was having that producer background. So when we would go over records, like bringing additional ideas to the table, like fleshing out, like, all right, like how do you think Lil Snoop ended up on the outro DC4? He was on a whole other record, you know, like splicing the vocal from that joint, putting it as the intro to the outro, you know, adding like stems from this part of the beat. So there's like this orchestral build up into Meek spazzing, putting another beat as the second half, so it sounds like this cohesive record. So things like that, like once we really started vibing and he started trusting me more creatively, like how far can we take these records? And that was something I prided myself on. But just some of the like housekeeping stuff, you know, just being on point, being available, you know, helping him build out his new mic chain just to keep a consistent sound. There was this frustration early on where we were using the equipment at the studio. He didn't travel with gear at the time, and so we were using the Avalon that was there. I think it was like a U87, and it was decent, but he was like, yo, there's just something that I need that's not here with this mic. So, you know, sourcing the gear that we would later travel with as his like set vocal chain. So adding that value of like, all right, anywhere we go, we're plugging up the same gear. So at least we'll have that consistency.
That's dope.
You know, so
that's something you don't normally think about when it comes to an engineer being that close to somebody, like actually doing those things, right?
Right.
Everybody's assumption is that, okay, you're just mixing records or you're just handing in the final product. Right. So it's like a lot of intricacies.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about, you know, we have a lot of songwriters in the room, you know, throughout the camp and whatnot. And a lot of them are starting to learn how to, you know, record themselves and get familiar with that. What kind of advice can you give, you know, writers that want to record themselves, and just in terms of approach or what they should focus on learning, and just give them some insight?
First of all, I think it's absolutely necessary. You know, a lot of my go-to writers like Nisha and Upstairs and all these other legends, they all know if they had to, they could just hit record and record themselves. They have a template they have, or they have settings that they go to. They know how to record their stacks and different things like that. And obviously they didn't know that earlier on. They progressively, you know, just kind of learn, picking the brain of the engineer, like, what does that mean? What is this effects bus? What is that compressor doing? What is this EQ doing? For one, it just helps with your workflow, because if you're at a hotel or if you're somewhere, like I said, and you just don't have access to engineer, you could just cut the record yourself and be able to send out ideas, which is a major plus and bonus to keep you, you know, at an advantage over a lot of people. But also, like I said, just, you know, being able to like properly communicate with the engineer. So when you do have a bigger session, you have an engineer there with producers and whatnot, instead of saying like, yo, my voice sounds kind of like, whatever, like super generic stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're like, yo, take out some of that 500, or like, you know what I mean? Like sweep the low end a little bit so my vocal doesn't sound so like chunky or whatever, like, you know what I mean? Or you could even just go and just do it yourself. What compressor are you using? Because I normally use this one. Like knowing what you need and being able to communicate it clearer to the engineer, it only helps with the flow of the session. There's a lot of frustration where, and there's a lot of memes and things online where like artists have their lingo, how they communicate, and you have to kind of decipher what it is they're talking about. Like, you know, I sound like I'm underwater. It's like, okay, well maybe that means reverb, you know, so let me,
one knob.
Yeah, so what is, like, you know, but being able to clearly identify what those things are just helps with the flow.
Yeah, I think probably one of the most important things right now for writers in general is to learn how to record yourself. I used to manage, I was telling you earlier about a writer named Cadence that co-wrote Thank You Next and 7 Rings for Ariana. And when we were working at the earlier stages of her career, before we actually got in the studio with some of these major artists or major producers, she used to record herself on a USB microphone on her laptop. And she took the time to learn how to mix these records. So if I send her a pack of 8 from like Cool and Dre, you know, I get back 6 in like 10 hours, fully mixed, ready to go. You know what I mean? And by doing that and giving these records back quicker to these, you know, bigger name producers, it just wanted to work with her more. It showed that you could, you know, turn around things in a quicker time. And also it shows the value of what you bring to the table, because you're cutting out a lot of the process to where like these guys might have to mix the vocals. Maybe they're not feeling the first version. Like you're going to give them what you really feel like it should sound. And I think that what you just said in terms of like knowing what you want to sound like is so important, especially when it comes to like, you know, auto-tune usage and key, understanding what your specific template might be, understanding the language. Like, I feel like, you know, these camps have helped me so much because I'm in the room with the engineer. I'm talking, you know, hey, drop this, verify that, you know, one knob this. And I'm learning things that I didn't really know, you know, but you learn through experience. You learn through going through the process of actually being in the room and experience it. But then eventually, you know, if you want to cut down on time, if you want to be more efficient and you want to really sound like you want to sound, it's highly favorable. Also, too, not even like producers, y'all should do the same thing. Like, you know melody, you understand how to follow a pocket because you made the record. Why not throw some mumble records together or tracks together where you could at least lay a foundation for somebody to come in? Because again, that's going to make you more of like a producer, because you're finishing a song, but you're also able to now have certain skill sets. You're a vocal arranger, you're a vocal coach, you know what I'm saying? And even vice versa. And then just a quick cheat code for the writers out there: learn how to play piano or guitar. Absolutely. The reason why you do that is because if you create the melody under your lyrics, you're the producer of the record. So now you take this record, you go to somebody and say, hey, I need you to make a beat for this. And now you're just work for hire as a producer. The person that made the song, the melody, they're basically holding all the publishing. So they might pay you a higher rate to make the beat, or they might say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna cut you in on the publishing. Let's do it together. So there's so many different ways to sway through the process of recording yourself, learning how to, sound the way you want to sound. You got YouTube University out there. If you take the time to just learn, you'll be much better off, in the long run.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about your transition into, being a little bit more of an executive. We were talking at the Penthouse event, and you were talking about, some of the, writers and producers that you had met along the way that you really got attached to. Let's talk about just some of those things. What made you really kind of want to go and switch gears a little bit?
I was always, like I said, I was always in the trenches with the music from the inception to the completion of the record.
Yeah.
And I was helping so much. I was building all these relationships with all these producers, with all these writers. What you notice over time as you're in the game for so long, a lot of people don't have proper representation. They need help. And those are opportunities for you, to kind of build your own roster and work together with people. But I started learning so much because, one of the things that Jimmy says is, everything you need to know about music business, you learn in the studio. And it's very critical as you're listening properly and really paying attention to what's going on. That is absolutely true. And so what I was learning was there's a lot of opportunity for me to grow beyond recording, because the recording engineer and the mixing engineer typically don't get publishing, they don't get royalty. You're just kind of paid whatever the fee is for the day. And unless you're a certain level of mixer, you're not really going to get points or pub or anything like that. But, if you do want to entertain that side of the business, you have to kind of, either do it yourself as far as production, songwriting, things like that, or build your team. The first opportunity I had in terms of client was Nick Paps, managing Nick. Before Nick, Meek had never had an official producer signed to him. He built a lot of people's career in terms of them working together and building a sound. Jalil Beats, Beat Bully. He worked early on with All Star, Cardiac, all those type of guys, but never had anybody officially tied to him. And he came to me one day and was like, "Yo, I really like this Nick Paps kid. I think he's the next thing on a producer tip. I want to figure it out." And I ran the deal home, got it done. And a couple years later, maybe a year and a half or so, locked in management with him. And we kind of just over the years just built this team. I met my partner Moan, who now helps me run my pub company. And we've built this roster together. We've, signed producers with Nick attached to it as well, where we all participate. And, it's been amazing, man. Put a lot of numbers on the boards, a nice catalog, even just outside of Meek, the most recent records, Sorry and Ferraris with Polo. We did a couple records on Meek's last EP. We did, this T Grizzly and 21 Savage record. And then one of our guys is even on the alternative side, did a couple remixes on Benson Boone, who has a number one record, had the number one record on Billboard recently. So just building it out, man.
Yeah.
But it just happened from just that hunger for more of what's the next step?
Right.
What can I turn this into?
Yeah. I think we always talk about networking and building relationships, right? That's a common conversation. I think the one conversation that we don't normally have is about positioning, right? Same thing with Scram. You guys are in spaces where other artists are around, other executives are around, people that you could eventually reach out to, all the artists that you work with in the studio that maybe came in for Meek. Now you have this outgoing network of people you can send this music to, and they're going to get back to you because you had that relationship with them. How have these relationships played into your career? And is there, aside from Meek, is there any specific relationship that maybe you hold dearly that maybe you took advice from that person that kind of helps you, your mantra now and some things you live by?
There's so many people, man. So many people. you know, one thing that I pride myself on, even just from when I first got in the door, was meeting certain people, just keeping my face clean, you know what I mean? So I could always double back and tap back in with these people and have them see kind of the journey of, you know, the growth. You know, Tim Blacksmith, we tap into this day. He was co-manager with Stargate at the time with Danny. And, you know, he's always just following the trajectory of his career, watching what they've done, even outside of our personal conversations, is just inspiring. And I always just kind of like research, like, man, what was the formula? Like, what was it they were doing? Guru is always a go-to. Just recently he got an opportunity now where I'm a professor at LIU Brooklyn in the Roc Nation School of Music.
That's fire.
Appreciate it. And that's from Guru. You know what I'm saying? Like, we've always kind of had this like very interesting relationship from when I first met him.
Yeah.
Being what he says is like one of his favorite assistants, to like bringing him into mixed championships when we did championships, to like him bringing me opportunity. Like, we've always just had like this really dope flow in our relationship, just a natural way of helping each other through the years. He's definitely a top one. I don't want to single anybody out. There's just so many people,
sure.
You know, but yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, where you are in your career now, you know, now that you've kind of switched over to the executive side of things, what haven't you done that maybe is on your trajectory of things that you would like to see you either get involved with, or it's on your vision board for the future?
Right now, the biggest thing is, you know, I've stepped away from working with Meek. I have my youngin' Mackie who's taken over on the engineering side. Shout out to Mackie. He's been killing it since he first stepped in. Like, his first project that he did with me was Flamers 5, when Meek dropped that mixtape last year. He did Heathenism, mostly by itself in terms of mixing. I still had my hand in, like, I put some of those records together, help produce, help engineer, but for the most part, like, everything from last year to now is Mackie's work. And he just, you know, he gets it, man. He gets it. He sees the opportunity. You know, we had a mutual conversation between Meek and myself of like just taking that next step, you know, and finding him somebody where he could, you know, make sure he's good in the studio and I could venture out and do my thing.
Nice.
So that's where I'm currently at. So, you know, just going full blast on working my roster of guys, like, you know, looking to get more into A&Ring projects, just independently, just finding artists that I have a synergy with, helping them put projects together, helping them, you know, find some dope records. You know, that's kind of the main goal as of right now, the immediate goal.
Yeah.
This professor thing is like, I'm very passionate about it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going full blast. Like, I started half-time this semester. I'm going full-time from fall.
Okay.
And it's going to be like an ongoing thing for me.
So I hope so. Yeah. Talk about the Hidden Hands podcast.
Yeah, Hidden Hands. Shout out to Cannon and the Tomorrow team. Travis, who's Rod Wave's engineer, I was introduced to him through my lawyer, actually. And we just kind of hit it off. We were chopping it up, and he's like, man, I've always wanted to do a podcast. And I explained kind of what I had tried to do in the past, and it never really connected. And I was like, at the time, I had been talking to Cannon about and helping him with the Tomorrow app and doing content with them, things like that. And I was like,
Tomorrow, one of our sponsors.
Definitely.
That.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So just introduced the idea to them of like me and Trav doing a show.
Yeah.
They were all very receptive. You know, shout out to Abdul and Cannon and the whole team. Kayla, and just really just laid it out to them like, look, we want to do Hidden Hands podcast. This is 2 engineers doing a show that's non-technical. It's more just giving people motivation, giving them game, letting them know what's really going on in the business, letting them know the lifestyle, things we've had to deal with that maybe triggers some of you guys or helps you guys through some hard times, give you some game where, you know, you can literally, one of my goals is like Jay-Z had a bar where he was talking to his son on a rap. He was saying, my only job is to cut the time in half.
Mhm.
And I look at that as like the people that I have under me, I want them to move forward a lot faster and pick up on things and not have to go through certain things to get to that point faster than I did. You know, it took me 10 years to get here. It could have potentially been a lot quicker and smooth at the same time, you know what I mean? But just like, you know, being able to give people the game on what to look out for, what to avoid. You know, it's a very vicious industry, always constantly changing.
Yeah.
You know, rules change, the way you get money changes, people get hired and fired, and how to maneuver through all that. You know what I mean? Like we're seeing a lot of things happening, especially right now. So I felt like, you know, there wasn't really that voice for that side of the culture. You know what I mean? There's the homies at Audio Nerds, there's Pensado and all that. You know, you can learn how to turn the knobs and stuff, but we're going to give you
More about the culture of it
the culture and the game.
What about, you had a platform for a while, you were doing some seminars. What was that called?
Yeah, my company is Break It Down, and I have this movement, Respect the Engineer. And I've, in the past, I've done a lot of like workshops and master classes, which, you know, I'm looking to get back into soon, just kind of like rebuilding things. But I had a great opportunity a few years ago to do like a bunch of different cities while we were on tour, just booking a studio, you know, having a bunch of kids in, just learning how we worked on records. You know, that was more like the technical side of it, but doing, you know, master classes and things like that.
Maybe we might need to recharge that.
Let's go.
Maybe do
I got a couple people we can
creative space, presents.
Let's go.
Help you move it around.
Let's go.
For sure. This one is a special one. You know, I was saying earlier, like my man Scram and Ski Beats, just still a very young gentleman. So you got a far way to go in this game still. But, you know, I really appreciate, you know, our friendship. You always coming out and showing love for the new creatives and whatnot. Everything you've done musically and sonically for the game, especially with, you know, elite artists, but also still remain humble. I think that's one of the greatest attributes anybody could have, is just remaining humble and staying in the moment of things, because it's easy to kind of get, you know, in this place where you forget about everything else that happened prior. But we got this Flowers Award for you, my brother.
Man, it's an honor, bro.
We are calling this is my idea of originality. We're calling this the Board to the Boardroom. You know what I'm saying? Flowers Awards.
That's hard.
I'll get it from my man Cruz.
Wow, thank you, man.
Did I take that?
Appreciate that.
Let's take a quick flick.
Wow.
Jay, you want to grab this last one for me, Jay?